everybody, this is Carly, and I wanted to take a couple of minutes to sort of walk you through an example in the technology forum of using some software for professional use. So in this example, I'm actually using two pieces of software. The first one is that I went out to our digital toolbox and I looked at video creation software, and I chose a product called Camtasia. And I chose it basically because I've used it before and it's been 20 years, but hopefully as we walk through this video, it won't be too obvious that this is a new thing for me as well. So I downloaded and installed Camtasia, and I am going to use it today to show you an example of some software that I use in my professional life. So if I'm at work, the number one software product that I use is Excel. So you have access to Excel through your UAGC account. It is part of the Microsoft 365 suite. And Excel is a spreadsheet program, and spreadsheets often have to do with numbers. So it does calculations, it does pictures, it can do things like budgeting, and I have used it for that in the past. The example that I'm going to show you today is one that is very important to anybody that works in higher education, and it is about retention and graduation rates. So retention is a calculation that institutions do, and it keeps track of the number of students that start in a particular year and whether they return to school in the next year. So that is called retention. And then graduation is, does that student that started in a particular year complete the program? And the general calculations are, did it take them 4 years, 5 years, or 6 years? And as an industry, we're even stretching it out a little bit, and there are some institutions that are required to report their 8-year graduation rates. So in this spreadsheet that you see, I will say that first, none of this is proprietary information. It is actually publicly available on any website. If you just type in retention rate and then the name of the school you're looking at, it'll tell you what their retention and graduation rates are. We're required to report that to the public by the federal government. So this is the calculations for my day job college. And the way that you read this is a thing that I created. I call it a waterfall spreadsheet because it kind of looks like a waterfall. You choose the year. So in 2015, of the students who started in the year 2015, you'll see that 93% of them came back in the first year, 88 in the second, 85 in the third, and then 82% of the students that started in 2015 graduated after 4 years. 86% graduated after 5 years, 87% graduated after 6 years, and that's where we are in time. They haven't had a chance to graduate at 7 or 8 years because we're not 8 years from starting in 2015. So that's sort of how this spreadsheet works, and I keep track of this information over time. Obviously, I started the spreadsheet in actually 2007. But I was able to find the data to go all the way back to 1991. And so that's a nice look over time at the number of students that come back from year to year. So one of the interesting things about Excel is that not only can you keep track of numbers over time, you can actually create pictures of that. So lots of people would look at this and say, I have no idea if this is important or what it means. But what I can do is I can take these numbers and I can turn them into a picture, and you can see over time the trend. And for a higher education institution, or for any employer, honestly, you want to keep your employees. In our case, we want to keep our students. So we would hope that over time that a picture of the data sort of looks like this. You know, we're not up and down all the time because that signifies some volatility in the number of employees that you have if you're an employer, or the number of students that you have if you're a higher education institution. So I'm going to show you just really quickly how that might work. I have a tab here on my workbook called Retention Over Time, and what you can see here is the years and the retention rates that we have. So if I were to graph this, I can show you that real quickly. We look at the two columns of numbers. You highlight those, you insert, and you can choose whatever type of graph you like. And because I've worked with Excel for 20, 30 years now, I can take one look at this chart and say, oh, that doesn't look right. You can see that I've got a line here at 0 and I've got a line here at 2000. And what happened here is that Excel sees two sets of numbers and it tried to graph them together. And that really wasn't my point here. Instead, what I want to do is I want to graph this column. So I'm going to sort of back out of that. I'm going to delete out the graphic, and instead I'm going to just highlight the numbers that I actually want to graph. I'll insert my graph here, and this looks a little bit better. Remember, I said that when you're thinking about retention of employees, or in the case of this particular spreadsheet, retention of students, you'd like that to be a relatively flat line. And as you can see, it kind of is, and I'll talk about this little issue in just a second. It kind of is. So this is what my chart should look like. Now I can make it pretty. The first thing is that because these are percentages, I'm going to adjust an axis here, and I'm going to, instead of a number, have it be a percentage. And I don't need any decimal places, so I'm going to delete that out. And you can see that now it's percentages, which makes way more sense than seeing a 1 or a 0.5. The next thing that I'm going to do is, when you look here, all you see is numbers. In reality, we want that to be the year. So I'm going to adjust that a little bit. And here we're talking about the horizontal axis. So I'm going to change my horizontal axis to account for all the years. And we're starting to look really good here. And you can see down here that it skips the even number years, 91, 93, 95, blah, 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 up to 2019. That's because this chart's a little bit small. And the easiest way to fix that is just to make that chart a little bigger. So that's what I did. And then I go one more piece to my chart, and that's the title. You never want to just leave chart title. And so this is retention, if I'd learned how to spell, over time. And now I have a chart title. I can do lots of other things. I can put a title on this axis, so I can come here and I can say, okay, I can use my axis title here. And then I have to say percentage, that kind of thing. I can even say, you know, I don't really like the blue here. So what I can do here is I can say, okay, how about if I make it a red line? And I make my little markers red markers. And there's my chart. Really simple, really, I won't say easy to do, because if you've never used Excel, I'm pretty sure you're watching this video going, oh my goodness, what did she just do? But for example purposes, remember, I've had several years of experience doing this, but for example purposes, hopefully you can see that in a professional environment, Excel allows you to keep track of numbers, and it allows you to make graphics that depict those numbers. So one more thing, I said I'd address this little issue. For my day job college, we do a pretty good job of keeping the retention rates even. Yes, we go up and down between 90 and 95, but we rarely exceed that little 5% band. And then we add 2019. So the definition here of retention is how many students started in 2019 and came back in 2020. If you remember, and how could you forget, 2020 was the pandemic. So what happened for us is that we had a lot of students say, I don't want to participate this year. So we let them go on leave. They have since returned, but because they were not here in 2020, we couldn't count them. And so that's what happened to our retention rate. It plummeted. You can see now that it's recovered. And so we have to explain that to all the federal government regulators, what happened to our retention rate. And this happened everywhere. So you will find hardly any education institution that did not suffer in 2019-20 to because of the pandemic. So hopefully I'd say enjoy, but like I said, if you're not familiar with Excel, or if Excel is either frustrating or makes you a little bit nervous, you're probably just sitting there going, oh my goodness. But this is just one example of professional use of software. And remember, two pieces of software. One is Microsoft Excel, and then the second is Camtasia, which you can download and use completely for free for 30 days. And then I'm guessing in 30 days it's going to ask me if I want to buy a subscription or purchase the software. But for now, I will end the video, and if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to respond to this post in the announcements, or send me an email, or ask me a question in any of the forums. And have a great day.